behalf of the Shoreline Chamber of Commerce, and Dee already did the welcome for you, and the League of Women Voters of the East Shore. And I'm chairman of the local League of Women Voters, and we're very excited to provide this opportunity for voters to hear the plans these candidates have for our towns and state. Each of these candidates has invested significant time in serving their communities, and we thank them for their willingness to run to make our state even better. Please join me in applause for all of them. You can clap at this. We also want to thank BCTV for broadcasting this forum and making it available. It will be in all the towns that these candidates represent. Each of the candidates will be asked the same question, but not necessarily in the same order. They will be asked to confine their answers to their personal plans for addressing each topic. Each question has a time limit, and we will ask them to respect that timing. We will hold up a 15-second time left sign, or Elise will hold it up, and ring a bell when the time is up. Please finish as soon as possible, candidates. I would like you to know Representative Candelora is running unopposed, which is why he doesn't have a candidate next to him for his seat. He's the Republican candidate for the 98th House District.
No.
Yes?
86.
Oh, 86. Oh, I'm sorry. The Republican candidate for the 98th House District, declined to participate. So let me introduce the moderators for tonight's forum. Dee Jacob, who you just heard from, President of the Shoreline Chamber of Commerce, and Dan Arman, Voter Service Co-Chair for the League of Women Voters of the East Shore. The moderators will provide a brief intro to each of the candidates before they begin to ask them a question. Thank you.
Good evening. Our first candidate to introduce tonight is Representative Vincent Candelora of the 86th House District, serving residents of North Branford, Durham, East Haven, and Guilford. He is in his 9th term, and since November 2022 serves as Minority Leader for the House. Representative Candelora previously served as the Deputy House Republican Leader. He has a long record of civic involvement, including 3 terms on North Branford's Town Council, as well as 1 as Deputy Mayor. He's volunteered for the town's public school system, and he's a past president of both the North Branford's Chamber of Commerce and its Rotary Club. During his time serving in the General Assembly, Representative Candelora has served on a wide variety of legislative committees, everything from finance to public health, and has led the House Republican Caucus in screening for, has led the Republican Caucus screening committee that reviews legislation before it's put up to vote in the House of Representatives. So first question to you, Representative Candelora. What is the first issue you would work on in the legislature if re-elected? 1 minute, please.
Sure. I think the primary issue in the long session is working on the budget, and I think you'll hear a lot about Connecticut's fiscal health and the guardrails that we have in place right now, and are they too constraining, or do they need to stay the way they are? There are a lot of demands in Hartford, a lot of pressures being put on our system, especially in the area of our youth, and I think that's something that we need to make a priority, is the number of disenfranchised children that are in our school systems. And I think that should probably be front and center and will transcend a lot of the budget conversation, from public education to healthcare to access to mental health services. I think we've done a lot in the past, but we need to continue to sort of focus on that population.
Thank you. Representative Moira Ryder was elected in November of 2022 to represent the 98th District of Guilford and Branford, and was named to the Education, Environment, and Public Health Committees. While thrilled to be representing the voice of her community in her state legislative role, Representative Ryder has been active in public service for over a decade. She has served in leadership roles on school PTOs, volunteered in her local church as a children's religious education instructor, given countless hours of local and statewide campaigns, and has proudly served on the Guilford Board of Education, now in her second term as vice chair. And if you see her leave a little bit past 7:15, it's because she has a meeting tonight. She states her experience as a community volunteer in public service has given her the perspective and understanding of the issues that matter most to her community, and will inform her work as a legislator, working to advocate for the needs and hopes of the people of Connecticut. Representative Rader, what is the first issue you would work on in the legislature if re-elected, and why?
Well, first I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Chamber for hosting this event, and thank you for all of you here for taking time to listen to us and hear what we have to share with you. Much like what Representative Candelora left off with, the thing I've been thinking about so much is around affordability. And I know that's what I hear from my constituents, especially in the last year or two. And we've done a lot with that, and we are in a good fiscal place in Connecticut. But if we can't talk about issues around affordability and how we tackle them, from just what our electricity rates are, to housing, to investing in our education, the thing around our communities that is kind of like the touchstone is our schools. And I've spent the last 7+ years serving on the Board of Ed and knowing intimately how important the success of our schools is for the success of our communities. And so I'm proud that we invested the largest amount ever in the history of Connecticut in education this last session, but we need to be doing more. Thank you.
There are a few seats over here. Feel free to walk in. John Michael Parker represents the 101st House District of Madison and Durham, and currently serves as Vice Chair of the Public Health Committee, and as a member of the Environment and Government Administration and Elections Committee. Representative Parker states that ensuring that our state government takes care of all of Connecticut's residents, prepares them to succeed, and builds communities in which they can thrive are among his focuses, as well as improving healthcare access, educational opportunities, and environmental protections across the state. Representative Parker has successfully led nonprofit organizations in both Connecticut and New York City. He currently serves as Executive Director of Arts for Learning Connecticut, the state's premier arts and education organization. He also brings his experience as an educator and artist to the General Assembly, as he worked as an elementary and middle school science teacher and toured professionally as a musician. He's a member of the boards of Madison Youth and Family Services, Academy Community Center and Design Committee, and the nonprofit Women and Family Life. Representative Parker, what is the first issue you would work on in the legislature if re-elected, and why?
Thank you for the introduction, and thanks everyone for being here tonight. I agree with the minority leader, and I love the conversation about our disengaged youth. That's a lot of what I do professionally. I look forward to talking about that tonight. I think the biggest work we do in this year is going to be the biennial 2-year budget. So much policy gets wrapped up in that, billions and billions of dollars of our state finances. And I think the two areas that jump out inside of that budget are going to be, as Representative Rader mentioned, affordability. We've done some great bipartisan work, cutting hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes over the last couple of years. That's been targeted at families, at working folks, at seniors, and I'm excited to continue and expand that work. That makes a big difference in our constituents' lives. And then the other piece, I think, is really related to our energy policy. Of course, that's from the bills that ratepayers are paying with our public utilities, the way they're regulated. It's a huge issue for next year to tackle. But also work that we're doing around the climate and around an energy transition, how we get a green economy with clean energy that is reliable and can help us get where we need to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate for the 101st District for Madison and Durham is Lisa Dean. Lisa is a proud wife and mother who began her start in Madison in the 1990s. Since then, she's become a well-known volunteer and anti-drug activist and co-owner of Brother Mike's Restaurant, dedicated to her late brother-in-law who went missing during the Vietnam War. Her journey to politics began when she worked alongside former state representative Noreen Kokaruda, and who recognized Lisa's passion for putting her community's needs first. Sadly, in 2018, Ms. Dean and her family suffered the tragic loss of her son John at the age of 23 to fentanyl poisoning. Using her remarkable leadership skills, she has since founded Demand Zero, which has become a nationally recognized nonprofit that focuses resources for law enforcement to help combat drug trafficking, as well as education programs for those affected by drug use. She has partnered with NBC Connecticut to host a student summit statewide and has been appointed a member of the state's opioid settlement advisory committee and research and data subcommittee. Ms. Dean began a run for the as state representative for the 101st House District because she hopes to bring her true love of service and her commitment to upholding local values to our state capital. Ms. Dean, what is your first issue you would work on in the legislature if elected, and why? You have a minute.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us. I guess it's no surprise to everybody that my first priority would be public safety. And coupling that with my small business experience, what I would like to do is work on a bill that had been proposed last session, didn't go anywhere. I fear that it will go somewhere in the next session. If so, I'd like to work with those two state senators on a bill that calls for small businesses to basically cover the costs of their people employed if they are addicted. This upsets me and it concerns me only because of two important factors. One, because as business owners, we love our employees. They're like family to us. If anything happened to them while we're paying for their recovery costs, it would be devastating. Plus, it's not good for our pocketbook. Secondly, the second thing, okay, I'll tell you the second thing later on.
It was just the first thing you were going to work on. So I'd like to turn the podium over to Dan Arman, who is from the League of Women Voters East Shore.
Good evening, candidates and neighbors. Senator Christine Cohn, 12th District, Brantford, Guilford, Madison, North Brantford, East Haven, Durham, Killingworth, Middlefield, and Rockfall, is a state senator representing the needs and wishes of approximately 100,000 residents. She is the state Senate chair of the Transportation Committee, vice chair of the Banking Committee, and she sits on the voting as a voting member on General Law, Children and Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committees. Since beginning her first term in 2019, Senator Cohn has focused her public policy energies on protecting Connecticut's environment, preventing gun violence, making Connecticut healthier, and strengthening the state's economy. Senator Cohen led the passage of the Connecticut Clean Air Act and statewide plastic bag ban. She led the Senate's passage of Ethan's Law on safer gun storage and helped to ban the production of untraceable ghost guns. As a business owner herself, Senator Cohen has worked as a stalwart to reduce business taxes and burdensome regulation, expand workforce development training, instituted a paid family and medical leave system beginning in 2022, and allowed the planting of hemp in Connecticut cropland, a brand new industry for our state. Other areas of policy focus include the affordable health care and mental health supports, awareness, and access. Senator Cohn created and co-chairs the Coastal Caucus, a bipartisan group of lawmakers who focus on issues affecting coastal towns, cities, and waterways. She also uses the private sector business experience she gained working for years at Fortune 100 companies like Stanley Black and Decker and Georgia Pacific to co-chair the legislature's Bioscience Caucus, which seeks to strengthen and promote Connecticut's robust sciences and biotech industries. Senator Cohen, what is the first issue you would work on in the legislature if re-elected, and why? You have 1 minute.
Well, first, let me just say thanks everybody for being here, and thanks to the Chamber as well as the League for hosting us tonight. And while all the issues my constituents bring forward and bring to my attention are of utmost importance to me, And certainly, we as legislators work concurrently on things, especially at the start of session. I would say something I'm hard at work on already as Senate Chair of the Transportation Committee is transportation. It's incredibly important to our economic vitality with the flow of goods and services, certainly commerce, our tourism industry, recognizing that we want people to be spending as much time with loved ones and family and not spending time in traffic and on the roads, certainly making sure that their safety is at the forefront. Those are the things that I'm working on now and that I have been working on as Senate Chair of the Transportation Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Christie, candidate for the 12th Senate District, states that growing up in a diversified area of the Bronx helped Paul become who he is today. Raised by a single mother who worked multiple jobs, Paul learned the importance of a work ethic. His humble beginnings motivated him to become a fiscally responsible business owner with a growing list of state and national clients who seek his expertise. Paul Christie moved to Connecticut 23 years ago with his family. He opened his consulting and marketing firm, Park Group Solutions, in 2005. Christie's platform primarily focuses on Project 18 to 29 and beyond, an initiative that would provide resources for adults 18 to 29 years old to encourage them to live and work in Connecticut.
No.
Some provisions include no state tax for home improvement for first-time buyers and tax write-offs for necessities within the first year of ownership. He also wants to create higher education tax incentives for businesses to fund employee college tuition, paid internships, and first right of refusal program post-graduation. Candidate Christie, what is the first issue you would work on in the legislature if elected, and why? You have 1 minute.
Okay, well, everyone's going to get their money's worth tonight. I'm an optimistic person, but I have concerns. And although everyone here tonight spoke about what they're planning on doing and the concerns they have and the legislation they're going to have, it's important that we finally start moving forward in some cases. 1829 and beyond was something that I looked at. Last time I ran, many of you know I ran on something called Common Sense. A lot of people say, well, that's not a platform. 1829 gives back to Connecticut, forms a foundation, and keeps people here. I can tell you I've spoken to a number of residents who say they're moving. I have 3 daughters that live in this state that can't afford to live here anymore, one of them in a very high-paying job. I have employees that have moved out of the state because they can't afford to live here. We need to reinvest back into what we do. I believe 1829 will do that, and we'll hear more about it as we move forward.
Thank you. State Representative Robin Comey was elected in 2018 to serve the residents of Connecticut's 102nd House District in Branford. For the 2024 legislative session, Representative Comey was appointed Assistant Majority Whip and a member of the Committee on Children, Education, and the Human Services Committee. Representative Comey successfully led the fight to require the driver's license test to be offered in an additional 26 languages to help Branford's large Nepali community and newly resettled refugee population in our state. Representative Comey has been advocating for more than a decade for policies that protect children with life-threatening food allergies. She has led passage of a statewide stock epinephrine law, restaurant allergy and safety training, and comprehensive food allergy policies for schools and child care programs. Comey has been instrumental in securing funds for her community, including vital grants for the Branford Counseling and Community Services and the Branford Housing Authority Parkside 2 Affordable Housing Project. Additionally, she has championed funding for BH Care, a provider of essential behavioral health services, and has successfully advocated for more education cost-sharing dollars to support local schools. Her efforts have also led to funding for Short Beach traffic calming, which will enhance safety and livability of the neighborhood. Representative Comey, serves as co-chair of the Early Childhood Caucus, focusing efforts to build a robust early care framework to support Connecticut's families. Representative Comey, what is the first issue you would work on in the legislature if re-elected, and why? You have 1 minute.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you to the League and Shoreline Chamber for having us here today. It's an honor to be up here with all these fabulous people. I would say, for those who know me and know what I work on, it's no surprise that early childhood is now and will be an important focus going forward. Affordable and accessible childcare allows parents to be better available to be an active part of the workforce, which is what we're talking about here, about our business environment. So I will continue those efforts. We've done some fair amount expanding child care assistance, care for kids eligibility last year, and we'll continue to fight for that for the upcoming years. We still have a significant shortage of child care, especially in the infant care, and early childhood programs also have the same workforce challenges that a lot of other programs as far as finding workforce, and I am going to continue to work on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Ray Ingraham has a rich history of service and deep commitment to the betterment of his community, and wants to bring his experience and collaborative spirit to the forefront of local governance. This marks Ingraham's second bid for the seat following his candidacy 2 years ago. Candidate Ingraham has been an integral part of the Brantford community for many years. He has a wide array of service in the Brantford community, from RTM Majority Leader, Justice of the Peace, active volunteer for a variety of youth sports, member of the Brantford Veterans Day Parade and Fireworks Committee, an active supporter of the Brantford Arts and Cultural Alliance. Ingraham states that he understands the importance of community connection and values the voices of constituents he serves. With a focus on issues ranging from education to tax stabilization, Ingraham is committed to forming a common voice that addresses the diverse needs of the 102nd District. Ingraham states his campaign is rooted in a genuine commitment to community service, a proven track record of leadership, and a vision for a thriving and united 102nd District. Candidate Ingraham, what is the first issue you would work on in the legislature if elected, and why? You have 1 minute.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. I believe in creating a Connecticut that works for everyone. A place where businesses thrive, families can afford to live, and seniors are supported. As your next representative, I'll stand for fiscal responsibility, economic growth, and policies that will bring real solutions to everyday struggles. Currently, I don't believe Connecticut is being represented that way, especially on the affordability front. Families are struggling with everyday necessities like utility bills and the cost of food. My first priority will be looking at how we can help struggling families. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to turn our focus to some questions that affect not only our business community, but our economic communities. We will be moving around the order that we ask questions, and we thank you all for your cooperation in passing the mic. So this first person to answer this question is Representative Rader. Connecticut is consistently ranked low in business friendliness and has declined in the past year. What would you propose to enhance Connecticut's standing as friendlier towards business? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you, and this goes right along with what I opened up with around affordability. In order to create a friendly business environment, we have to address affordability. And we can't build a workforce unless we talk about things like housing, unless we talk about dealing with our environmental issues. We saw one of the most historic floods in Connecticut just this summer. We've witnessed 2 horrendous hurricanes in Florida just this past month. And I want to just talk about housing for a minute and how it connects to the business growth. I hate the term unfriendly because we've done a lot in Connecticut to reduce the tax burden on small businesses and families. We've paid down our debt. We have an incredible rating in terms of our state government. We've done a lot. We're in a really good place. And our governor is very business friendly and has encouraged and brought in a lot of large businesses to build more job opportunities for our residents. But we have to talk about housing, because if you don't provide a safe, enjoyable community space for everyone to go home to, all the other things won't come together. If you run a small business, your employees need a place to live. One of the candidates up here referenced their kids can't live here. I have 4 teenagers, 2 in college, 2 in high school. One's going to graduate at the end of the month, at the end of May, and he already told me, Mom, I can't come back to Connecticut because I can't afford it. So we have to talk about that piece, because if we can keep our residents here, then we can build our workforce and we can support business.
Same question to Representative Parker. Connecticut is consistently ranked low in business friendliness and its decline. What would you do or propose to enhance Connecticut's standing as friendlier towards business? 90 seconds.
Thank you. I love a lot of what you shared, Maura. The importance of housing. I'm sure we'll hear more about the importance of transportation so that folks living in communities can get to where their work is, and there's policies that we can do to improve that, investments we can make further in that regard. I'll talk a little bit about something that I myself as an employer have been working on a lot recently, and that's about healthcare. I run a small nonprofit with 7 employees, and after years of saving up, we were finally able to offer a health plan to our employees. Costs us, just a few people in the program, $30,000. And of course, my employees are themselves paying thousands of dollars on top of that. This has been a real challenge for us in Connecticut. It's something we hear from employers when we talk to them. It's something we hear from employees when they're making decisions about the companies they want to go work for. The fact that we have a system that ties your health care, one of the most basic rights we can think of, to be safe and to be well cared for and to be healthy, ties it to your employment. That makes it difficult for young people to find the right job and to build their career path. So I'm interested in work that we've talked about in the past and made some progress on around a Connecticut plan that would make it easy for small businesses to buy into a shared plan that would keep costs down. I'd be interested in some work also that we've done around, I think, a targeted association health plan, which will let similar businesses come together to buy health care. This is probably the thing that I think is going to unlock a lot of employment growth and make Connecticut a place where people can find great work and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dean, same question. What would you propose to enhance Connecticut's standing as friendlier towards business? 90 seconds.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Thank you. I'm going to speak as a restaurant owner. We limped through COVID just as many other businesses did, and we made it through, thankfully. Some of us did not. Sometimes I wonder how small businesses are staying in business these days. I feel sometimes like a tax collector for the state of Connecticut, actually. The prepared meals tax, I don't understand why it jumped God bless you, I don't understand why it jumped a percent. I would like to see it come down. I think it's unfriendly, actually. We are catering to a lot of young families, a lot of seniors that that are on a fixed income and don't cook anymore. It makes it tough. We're vying for entertainment dollars with other restaurants in town. So beyond that, we want to provide our employees with better benefits and better pay, but our margins are so slim lately that that is not doable. Big business is not affected by these different regulations. Small businesses are. I'd like to work on small business tax breaks and hiring incentives. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Candelora, back to heading cleanup on this question. Connecticut's ranked low in business friendliness. What would you propose to enhance Connecticut's standing as friendlier towards business? 90 seconds.
I think we have to have better conversation with the business community up in Hartford. Having been a business owner and serving in Hartford for the last 18 years, there is a disconnect. You know, Connecticut's doing very well with our fiscal guardrails and paying down our debt, but it really is government working for itself and not for people. The focus that the government has been on, our focus of business friendliness and performance is on Wall Street. We look at the success of Wall Street and say everything is okay, but we don't look at Main Street. And I think we have to do a better job at that. The minimum wage that was increased 5 years ago was indexed to inflation. And so for me as a business owner, having to struggle with the increased food costs that have impacted, now to see that minimum wage is just going up and up and up without an end in sight. Right now it's slated to be over $16 an hour in January. When you have a business that's primarily minimum wage college and high school kids, it's going to eat into the living wage of your full-time employees. And so I think the policy is going to start to swallow itself, and we have to look at that. When we look at paid family medical leave, great laudable program, but we are overtaxing the residents of Connecticut for that program. A third of the applicants are denied, and we have over $1 billion surplus in that account. We are over-collecting on the employees. We need to take a look at that. And I could certainly go on a lot longer, but I think we need to evaluate the programs we have right now and see how it's working and not working for Connecticut.
Thank you. Candidate Christie, the struggles of our main streets are still apparent even a few years after the COVID epidemic. The rising cost of rents, the impact of inflation on material foods and food costs, the cost of workforce and availability of workforce has resulted in the closing and turnover of storefronts and restaurants through this shoreline town. What ideas do you see as priorities to create stability in the towns you do or might represent? 90 seconds, please.
So the first thing you have to do is identify the problem first. I'm listening to everyone speak tonight. We all have concerns. You have concerns. People sitting here, we might not all have the same views, but we do have the same issues. Everyone's got to pay their mortgage, they have to pay their taxes, pay their car payments. But where did it root from? Okay, so the previous administration chased a lot of businesses out of here. The truth of the matter is GE left. You have Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan Chase, sorry, overthinking here. You have a lot of people left. Sikorsky has 1 foot out the door right now. They laid off over 1,000 of their engineers. My son-in-law lives there, and they have 1 foot out the door because their technology was not prepared to go with drones. They were building helicopters, the military came and spoke to him. So what does that mean? The burden of taxes sits on all of us. Not every state has property tax on their homes, nor do they have property tax on their cars, and so on and so on. We got $2.8 billion in COVID relief funds. How did we not pay a moratorium bill on our electric bills? How'd that happen? I mean, seriously, we could all sit here and go back and forth and say what it is. $2.8 billion for COVID relief. If that's not the forefront of COVID relief, I don't know what is. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring businesses back by tax incentivizing them and having them hire Connecticut-based people so they will plant their roots back in Connecticut and we can start again. It is not a short process, but it needs to start because there are no quick fixes. Thank you.
Representative Comey, same questions. The struggles of our main streets are still apparent even after the COVID epidemic. The rising cost of rents, the impact of inflation on materials and food costs, the cost of workforce and availability of workforce has resulted in the closing and turnover of storefronts and restaurants through the shoreline towns. What ideas do you see as priorities to create stability in the towns you do represent? And you have 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. So I am a small business owner myself. I've been in business with my husband since the early 90s. And we have seen in my business our industry change dramatically. We're in communications and media. And one of the things that I was thinking about when presented with this question was the fact that we really can't discount Main Street's challenge is that their brick and mortar businesses are being in competition with Amazon and with online purchasing. So, we can buy everything online this year, these days. We can buy cars, we can buy insurance, we can not only buy goods but services. And I think that businesses, it's important that we're adapting. The chamber is a great opportunity. They help the business owners and the platforms for promotion, and they encourage folks to shop local and all of that. But I think communities need to understand who's living in their communities and the demographics and the population and the needs, and working with communities to do things like incubators for young business owners, and making a downtown organization that is really a stakeholder in this work. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Abraham, same question. I could compress it a little bit. What would you see as a priority to create stability in the towns you might represent? 90 seconds, not 90 minutes.
I'll go less. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy. They're facing real issues, from high rents to inflation. Understanding those pressures they're under, we need policies that make it easier for our businesses. Here, encouraging them reasonable commercial rents, helping business navigate the supply chain, and by cutting some of the red tape that they see now. Thank you. I'm a sharp.
Thank you. Senator Cohn, same question. What ideas do you see as priorities to create stability in the towns you represent?
Thanks, Dan. So I'm a small business owner myself. Small businesses make up 99.4% of all the businesses in the state of Connecticut. They represent about 50% of the workforce. And I see workforce and workforce development as one of the biggest challenges right now to small business, as well as housing. And the two are inextricably tied together. Housing, we have a housing shortage. Both affordable and market rate housing is just really unavailable in the state of Connecticut, and because we have such a tight market right now in terms of availability, prices have really skyrocketed. It's made it very difficult, and we heard this from some of the panelists, for folks to stay here once they've been educated here. Yet we have an incredibly educated workforce available to us. Right now we have one of the lowest unemployment rates we've had. It's been lower than the national unemployment rate for the past few months, and we have 90,000 unfilled jobs in the state of Connecticut. So what does that mean? It means we really need to make sure we're training a workforce for the jobs that are open today. That means working together with businesses across the state of Connecticut to understand their needs, making sure that we're working with our community colleges, our state colleges, our private institutions, and our tech schools and high schools to make sure that we have a workforce prepared for these 90,000 open jobs. And so really it's about collaborating together, making sure that all of these facets are being addressed.
Thank you. Representative Parker. Connecticut has a high cost of doing business, particularly in utility costs, but especially in electricity, which affects business and consumers. What ideas do you bring to the table to moderate the rise in electricity and other utility costs? 90 seconds.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Over the last couple of months and every couple of years now since 2018, I've spent many hours, my colleagues up here would agree with this, many hours out talking to constituents at their doors, probably a lot of people in this room. It's one of the things that I heard most often over the summer was people would walk up with their utility bill and say, what is going on? I said the same thing about our utility bill. You know, there's a long history for how we got to the place we're in. It leads back to some legislation from before I got there, and even earlier, in terms of the way that we set up these utilities in our state and the way that we regulate them. And I think it's time to revise and revisit. I'd say one of the first things that's, I think, a real issue, and probably a bunch of people up here did the same thing too, submitted a complaint to PURA when the commissioners came in and decided to put all of this on ratepayers over such a short period of time. I really wish that would have been spread out over longer. That request was denied when they came back in and made the same decision. So I think that's one of the specific things we can do is looking at the way that regulator is able to make these decisions for ratepayers, the time and amount that's being pushed on folks. We also heard a lot about the different policies that go into our energy bill, and maybe we need to do some work at the state. We heard about some big budget conversations. Maybe there are programs that should be paid directly through the state as opposed to the utility bill. It's going to be one of the most complex issues that we deal with next year, and I think it's going to be, again, a bipartisan issue that we can solve together. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate Dean. Connecticut's cost of utilities, especially how it affects businesses and consumers. What ideas do you bring to the table to moderate the rise in electricity and other utility costs?
Thank you. It's no doubt the number one complaint that I get when door knocking. That and paying for the electricity of their neighbors' EVs. In a state, we're growing more unaffordable all the time, and public benefit tax was the last straw, I think, for many that are struggling with food costs and rising gas prices and insurance also rates. For those of us who own a business and a home, it was a struggle, I will say, especially in the very hot months of the summer. July was brutal. Now, we're geographically challenged, there's no doubt about that. I think that the options would be to finally finish off the offshore wind farm. I think we need to do that, and I think we need to seriously consider additional nuclear power also. It's clean, it's affordable, and that's what I think we should do. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Candelora, high cost of doing business with utilities costs. What ideas do you bring to the table to moderate the rise in utility and other utility costs? 90 seconds, please.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think one of our first issues is that PURA is broken. When Representative Parker referenced PURA making the decision to put all that increase into the 10-month period that we're now paying, they delayed cost increases over 2 years. So they basically kicked the can down the road until there wasn't any time left, and they plopped this massive bill onto all the residents of Connecticut. They sort of hedged their bets over that Millstone contract when they should have spread out the credits over time to sort of offset and make our bills more gentle. They kind of ramped it up until there was no better decision. I think the governor needs to make his appointments on PURA. Right now there's 2 vacancies. The other 3 serve at the whim of the governor. So all decisions are essentially being made out of the governor's office. PURA needs to be an independent body again. Those appointments need to be made. I do think we need to look at nuclear power. I think we've got to look at waste to energy again. Under Commissioner Dykes, she did eliminate a lot of our waste to energy plants. Europe has 0 emission plants. And I think it's a technology that we need to look at to bring back to our state. We are an energy cul-de-sac. We're limited on sources of power. We have hydro and gas, but we're at the whim of New York. So I think we have to look at those 2 areas, nuclear and waste to energy.
Thank you. Representative Rader, again, high utility costs, especially in electricity. What ideas do you bring to the table to moderate the rise in electricity and other utility costs? 90
Thank you. At the hope of not being repetitive, we heard some really important ideas here. I agree with you around PURA. There really needs to be a rehaul of how that works when it comes to down just 3 people making a decision like that affected all of us. That needs to be reconsidered. And not to put it all in their lap, but the structure of it is wrong, and we need to have a better structure around rate reviews and regulation of that. I'm going to talk about the environmental component of this, because when we talk about renewable energy, I just wanted to be very clear. In Connecticut, we have made large investments in this, but we've also seen investors pull out of these investments. We talk about wind, we talk about solar, hydroelectric. There are a lot of avenues for this. We also have a bit of a utility monopoly in Connecticut. It's not a monopoly by definition, but there's cities like Groton who have independent utilities that are able to regulate their rates, have a little bit more buying power. So I think we need to relook in Connecticut how we utilize and how we allow for providers. And I think there's a lot of work to be done. It's super complicated, but what I want to be at the center of whatever we do is our environmental impact. The reason we have the storms we are having, the reason we have the sea level rises, it is happening. Nobody can argue with it. We see what is happening just this year. Anything we talk about when it comes to energy and addressing our utility costs has to keep that at the center. Otherwise, we're really not solving the long-term problem. If we keep burning fossil fuels, we'll still be with all these terrible weather issues.
Okay, thank you. Representative Comey, the topic of workforce housing has been talked about for several years here. How do you see us making progress in our shoreline towns so that workforce, seniors, and new residents can live, work, and retire in our own towns? 1.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, workforce housing, I mean, it's come up in every question here tonight, so it is definitely a priority for every lawmaker and every lawmaker every person up here who would like to be a lawmaker. Housing values have increased so much, and you know, many people can't afford it. They have lots of jobs, multiple jobs, and they still can't afford it. I think in Branford, we are building housing, but the average person really can't afford to rent or purchase one of these units. And I just want to tell a funny story about while I was door knocking, I met these three senior women who had purchased one of these luxury townhouses on the Branford River. And it was two sisters and another third person who they all met down in Florida, and they didn't have any other folks with them, husbands or any other family that they could rely on. So they got together and they chipped in the resources, and they're now living in this one home. So I think we have to think out of the box. Towns, we've given some. Okay.
Candidate Ingraham, same question regarding workforce housing and for our seniors.
Thank you. Branford's one of the most socio-economically diverse towns in the state. We have a variety of housing options, from apartments, single-family houses, and many different types of condos. This kind of diversity of housing is vital. We need to continue to partner with our developers and local governments to increase the pace of workforce housing. I will advocate for streamlining the approval process while ensuring developments meet the community needs. Thank you.
Senator Cohen, same question.
Thanks, Dan. As I said before, I think housing is one of the most important issues that we're faced with, and the lack thereof. We need both affordable and more market rate housing across the state of Connecticut. And when, our census numbers came out a couple of years ago, we saw very little growth in the suburbs and rural areas, and more growth in our urban centers. In fact, in the 12th district, the only town that grew at that time, this is of course before we were redistricted, but the only town that grew at that time was Branford, and that's because they were doing a good job in terms of housing development. We need to put sort of that same vigor on towns across the state of Connecticut and use development incentives to make sure that we are meeting those needs and getting there. The housing that we're seeing is not the affordable housing of yesteryear. What we're seeing even in towns like Madison and Guilford and all across the Shoreline and points north are these single-family homes that are built to be affordable. And again, developers are looking for sort of this mix of market rate and affordable housings. We need to work with our Department of Housing to make sure that we are incentivizing that. It needs to continue to be a priority of both the governor as well as the legislature to help us get there, and really work with our COGS and municipal leaders as well as planning and zoning officials, inland wetland officials, to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our communities and our businesses.
Thank you, and Candidate Christie, same question. You got cleaned up.
Oh, good. Connecticut ranks 47th in business tax climate again. That's not me, that's the Institute of Investigator. I have CNBC that ranks us 32nd. I have another one here that ranks us 49th in fiscal stability, and opportunity is 47. I could keep going. We're all interviewing for a job here. This isn't always a popularity contest. It's about doing the job. 90,000 jobs available, record low or back to record low inflation, yet why do we have so many jobs available? Why isn't anybody taking them? Because we're leaving the state. This is not, we have to recognize, and the fact of the matter is that we have a problem in the state of Connecticut that we need to fix. We can't keep talking about what we're hoping and wishing for. There needs to be solid, real ideas about how we are going to generate revenue. Because we're spending money. Scottsdale, Arizona, $2 million home, $2,300 property tax. How is it that people are paying $30,000 and $40,000 property tax? Marijuana, sports betting. We didn't have that forever. What did we do with all that money? So what will we do if we didn't have that? You have to ask these questions. We have to rebuild our workforce. We have to pay attention. Our regulations are too stringent. Our tax burden is too much on small business, and until that gets fixed, we are going to just keep wishing and not getting anything done.
Thank you. Candidate Dean, the struggle of our main streets is still apparent even after the COVID epidemic. So the rising cost of rents, impact of inflation, material food costs, cost of workforce, availability of workforce, has all resulted in the closing and turnover of storefronts and restaurants throughout our shoreline towns. So what ideas do you see as priorities to create stability in the towns that you might represent?
Thank you for the question. Again, small business owner, I will speak for myself and for Main Street in Madison, as well as the shopkeepers in Durham. It is tough to keep the doors open sometimes. Now, as a restaurant owner, and I've talked to several that share the same exact sentiments as I, our cost of doing business or our cost of goods sold are 25 to 30% higher on any given day. Another increase in minimum wage is coming our way. I think it's about 66 cents or so. No one's begrudging a working or living wage to our employees, but there comes a time when it gets way above what we're able to pay and what we're able to continue to do business with. We've got a bottle bill now, a bottle deposit raise. I can tell you, my husband's in the beer business, nobody returns their cans. Maybe you do, I hope you do, but a lot of people don't. The prepared meals tax again, the mandated time off, and the paid family medical leave. It's all coming together. People forget also that we also have sewage and trash collection price hikes. Even our HVAC rates have jumped up when we need to hire a plumber or an electrician. We need to do something to get these rates down. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Candelar. Again, the struggles of Main Street still apparent, rising costs of rents, impact of inflation, et cetera, et cetera. So what ideas do you see as priorities to create stability in our towns that you might represent?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one because obviously we're sort of at the victims of what happens federally. You know, inflation is something Connecticut cannot control. You know, I would say the policy that have been put on in the past, we should be looking at. You know, for instance, the CT My Savings, which is the retirement savings, it's an opt-out program, not an opt-in program. I think we should be making it an opt-in program. If people want retirement savings accounts, they should be able to ask for it rather than the other way around. The paperwork alone, as a business owner trying to administer that, every time you have a hire and making sure that they opt out if they want to, is very cumbersome. Paid sick leave, we shouldn't be at 0 for the 5 days off. We should be at 5 or more employees. You know, even New York didn't go to 0 for their employees for paid sick leave. Another program that's very costly for small businesses, not just to administer, but also to keep track of. I think we should be taking a look at the minimum wage as well and breaking it off from inflation. It was an idea that didn't seem too bad when it was done 5 years ago. I think people thought of it as being an incremental, maybe a 10-cent or 15-cent increase. We are seeing year over year of 65-cent increases. It is going to impact living wages for full-time employees if it continues to ramp up at the rate it's going.
Representative Ryder, again, the struggles of our main streets, rising costs in a variety of fashions. What ideas do you have as priorities to create stabilities in the towns that you might represent? 90 seconds.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about, in terms of small business and Main Street and downtown, I'm going to go back to the issue we talked about our disconnected youth and the youth of Connecticut. ages of 16 to 28 is kind of the category we're talking about. And one of the issues that we find around there is that if we don't capture them early, keep them in school, keep them in trade programs, we really lose them. And they become I don't like the word burden, but a different kind of responsibility for the state. So when we talk about Main Street, I want to make sure that we incorporate our education system in that. Because again, if we're not investing in our community schools and our public school system, again, nothing else really matters. Your property values will go down, your population will decrease, and we won't have that tax support for our communities. The other thing I want to go back to is we talk about the minimum wage a lot tonight, but you have to understand a couple earning minimum wage, the two of them, cannot afford anything in Connecticut right now. The vacancy rate on apartments in Connecticut is 2%. So when that one apartment comes available that might be in their price range, it's gone in a heartbeat. When we talk about, I want to talk about solutions for housing again, because if Main Street doesn't, I keep coming back to this because it's what we're going to have to really tackle. We do have a need for over 90,000 units of housing in Connecticut that we don't have. So how do we do that? We're an old state. We have zoning laws. We have protected open space. And I'll talk about it more later.
Thank you. And Representative Parker, again, the struggles of Main Street, the turnover and loss of businesses in Main Street. What ideas do you see as priorities to create stability in the towns that you might represent?
Thank you.
Seconds.
I think about stability in my town, and I look right in front of me, and I see our first select woman, Peggy Lyons. I think something I've learned in the legislature has been that one of the best things we can do to support stability in our communities is to partner with our municipal leaders and our municipalities. I think with the support of our colleagues in the legislature and in the town government, we've done extraordinary work in Madison, bringing funding back to the community, millions and millions of dollars over the last 4 years. Grant dollars that are competitive, that we need a great team to work on, but that we can advocate for as well, that make a difference for our downtowns, whether it's connectivity grants that we've gotten, increasing sidewalks, making it walkable so people can get to our small businesses, our downtown project, finishing the power lines, making it easier for our Main Street to be a place of commerce and community. We've done great work with generators supporting public safety so that people can feel safe and supported in our community. Work down at the surf club, bringing money to Carvin Point so that we can rebuild something that brings so many folks into our community. I don't see our first selectman of Durham here, but of course we've had great wins in the other part of my district as well, for the library, for the athletic complex. These can make a difference on taxpayers' dollars because we're saving money on these local projects that the town doesn't then have to raise for. And ultimately, I think having that strong partnership with our local leaders and the legislative group in Hartford is what helps move these projects forward in a pro way. I'm grateful for your partnership on that, Peggy.
Thank you. Representative Comey, we'll let you get the mic. There you go. Connecticut is consistently ranked low in business friendliness and has declined in the past year. What would you propose to enhance Connecticut's standing as friendlier towards business? 90 seconds.
Okay, well, I will tell you that my husband and I talked about this question, and his number one answer, and we've been talking about this for several years, is the pass-through entity tax for small businesses. As a small business owner in the state, it is really prohibitive to put away every quarter 7% of your gross income. It's devastating for businesses like mine. I mean, I know that I personally get it back at the end, but a couple $1,000s every quarter is money that my family could be spending now on food and other bills. And so, I just know that we need to revisit that, whether it's lowering the 7% or some other avenue to figure out a solution that works for all our small businesses, because I know that our businesses and the people that run them feel that, and it really does hurt. So I would like to see that change. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Ingraham, same question.
Thank you. Connecticut's earned a reputation of being unfriendly to businesses. due to excessive regulations, if we've heard this up and down the line, on high taxes. We need to streamline permitting processes, tax incentives for small businesses, and fewer mandates that burden local businesses. I'd advocate for lower corporate taxes, eliminating redundant regulations by reducing the operational costs for businesses. We can make Connecticut competitive again and encourage businesses to stay, grow, and hire locally.
Senator Cohen, same question.
Thanks. So it was mentioned before that I am one of the chairs of the bipartisan bioscience caucus. I think one of the biggest things we can do for businesses, especially in these burgeoning industries like life sciences, is make the R&D tax credit 100%. Particularly in the 12th district, some of you might be surprised to know that we do have a very robust life sciences industry, our bioscience sector. There are many of them in both Branford, Madison, Guilford, all the way up the line. And so it's really important that we're paying attention to this. We've improved the angel investor tax credit. But much like my colleague, Representative Comey said, I'm in favor of increasing the pass-through entity tax back to its original levels. We have saved Connecticut businesses hundreds of millions of dollars using this pass-through entity tax. We need to continue down that path and increase it back to its original levels. And these are really bipartisan initiatives. I'm proud of my work with Representative Candelora and many of my colleagues up here on eliminating duplicity in business and bureaucracy around permitting and inspections, making sure it's easier for small businesses to do business in Connecticut. You're lucky that you're represented in the legislature by a lot of small business owners. And so we have a loud voice up there. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And candidate Christian, same question.
So it's kind of unfair for the incumbents because they have their time in there, and it's not an easy job. Everyone here, there's not a bad person sitting up. Everybody's trying to do good, and maybe we don't all agree with each other. But at the same token, they're working hard. The problem is that sometimes you're going to hire somebody based on what their abilities are. And you're going to have to compare records to whether it's my opponent or somebody else here. But the question still remains is that, I'm going to say it again, it's going to sound redundant, $2.8 billion came into this state. We talk about a rainy day fund. We're talking about all these different things. We talked about housing. Housing could be affordable. Housing didn't just get crazy overnight. We went up 300% in some cases in certain towns on purchasing of homes. Why did that happen? Okay, the bottom line is we need to be more productive, and we need to be up in Hartford legislating in the best interest. Some people have had chances to do that. Okay, we've been up there. It hasn't happened, so all we're doing is reliving and talking about what we're hoping to do. But at some point it's got to get done, and it hasn't. Again, in some circles, in some, it's 50, we're ranked 50th. If we're doing so well, then we need to talk about it, because money is the final line on our housing, on our infrastructure, and if we didn't get all of this influx of money, where would we be right now?
Switching gears to you, Representative Candelora, and you pass the mic back, please. We're going to picking up workforce housing has been talked about for several years. How do you see us making progress in the shoreline towns so that not only our workers, but our seniors and new residents can live, work, and retire in our towns? 90 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult topic because obviously with, home rule, local zoning, towns, want to develop their communities as they see fit. I think Connecticut last year passed some legislation incentivizing communities to develop transit-oriented housing, which makes a lot of sense, and you're seeing those projects occur, along our railways, and I think that needs to continue. I think Clinton and Wallingford have done that. We also do have to look at the starter homes. We have the market for the McMansions and for the apartment complexes, but there isn't a lot there for the small starter homes, and I'm not sure, how we get that incentivized. The housing issue is sort of complex, and I think one of the issues, frankly, is the migrant population we've seen come into Connecticut. They are taking up housing. And so somehow we have to be able to address that issue. It sort of was thrust upon us at the federal level. And what I find frustrating is federal money can't go toward offsetting these costs. So it all falls upon the state to absorb these housing costs. So to create housing not just for our younger population, but also for our migrant population coming into Connecticut. And that's something that we just are gonna have to figure out. Part of it, I think, as time goes on, we'll see more housing being developed, but it's not an overnight answer.
Thank you. Representative Rader, again, the topic of workforce housing, making progress in our shoreline towns so that workers, new residents, and seniors can live in our towns. 90 seconds.
Thank you. Well before I was a legislator and even a Board of Ed member, I worked in the field of architecture, historic preservation, construction, planning. That's kind of my wheelhouse. And so I come at this from a very different perspective, probably very unique to what's been discussed here. I agree with a lot of what we've talked about around workforce housing. I also think that we are very stuck in an old way of doing things. We have 169 municipalities that all have what you hear thrown around, local control, and that is a good thing. It's why our communities look the way they look. But they can become very insular because we're not willing to look at housing in a different way. And some of those models are being already utilized in some states around the U.S. Oregon has a lot of what are called co-housing developments, where you actually put together people right out of school with seniors, and they have communal kitchen spaces, they have their own apartments. It creates more of a community. Because one thing you don't want to do when you address workforce housing is just give someone a little studio apartment in a concrete building somewhere at the edge of town. That's not how we should be doing this. We talk about housing as a commodity, but it really is the basis for how you can then structure your life. And I go back to talking about how, we have an issue around keeping our young professionals in Connecticut. Not everyone's going to be a professional. Some of our kids are going to come out of high school and they're going to go right to a trade. They're going to work at McDonald's and be really proud of that and be a manager someday. And so when we talk about affordable housing, we need to remember who we're actually talking about and who's going to actually be living there.
Thank you. Representative Parker, same question. How are we going to make progress in our shoreline towns so that we have housing for all of these groups of people? 90
Thank you.
seconds.
When I think about this, I start with what's working in our community. We've made some great progress. I think about a couple of projects in Madison currently that I think maybe point the way forward. And some of the things that come to mind, first of all, it's about financing and providing the funding for developers, sometimes working with nonprofits, to be able to build workforce housing and then offer that to folks, as Representative Rader mentioned, that really need these homes, often people that live in our communities. So there's something around making sure that we have capital accessible, and there's more policy we can do to support that. As we heard from the minority leader, we think about empowering our local officials, the heroes in our community that volunteer for these boards and commissions of planning and zoning and that go through long, long hours listening to their neighbors and trying to make decisions that are right for their community. So supporting that structure and lifting that up, but also providing technical expertise. There's work we've done to create statewide knowledge sharing and technical expertise around how to develop these kinds of projects, because sometimes that knowledge is not there inside of small local communities. And the last piece I think that is sort of connected to that is supporting a bit more of a regional approach. We heard reference earlier our councils of government, our COGs, providing ways for municipal leaders across our region to work together to think about housing solutions, because our borders are not simply Madison and Guilford, and everything needs to change from one town to the next. We should be doing policy and strategy in group.
In Candidate Dean, the topic of workforce housing again, how can we make progress on that in our towns? 90 seconds, please.
Thank you. I completely agree with John Michael. The volunteers that do sit in on these commissions are wonderful people. I've sat in on a few affordable housing committees, and I won't lie, it gets pretty heated sometimes, but they're doing such a wonderful job, and they're working with the community to figure out how best to make everyone happy while getting more housing in for we don't want our seniors to move out, we want our kids to move back in, and we want our first responders to be able to live in our own towns. I agree with Representative Candelora in that I would love to see houses that are affordable, a mid-grade. And for that, we need to attract developers. And we need to give those developers some type of incentive. And I will say, I don't know how to do that. I hope to learn more about it. But the affordable housing in Madison it's actually beautiful. They do it wonderfully. And anyone would be proud to live in one of those units. I just don't know how much we can bear. We don't have the infrastructure to satisfy what the state wants, and that's 10%. I think we're at 1.4 right now, but we simply just don't have the infrastructure to do it.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question for Senator Cohen.
Switching things up.
Mike Reddy. Connecticut has a high cost of doing business, particularly in utility costs, but especially in electricity, which affects business and consumers. What ideas do you have to bring to the table to moderate the rise in electricity and other utility costs?
So as a business owner and a resident, I sort of, as did many of us and many of you in the room, had a double whammy with the rising cost of electricity over the summer. We saw record high temperatures this summer, along with this PURA decision, which was primarily, many of us know this, 77% of that was based on a decision made in 2017. And what I'll say is, right now, we, thanks to the legislature, allow our residents to switch suppliers, thanks to deregulation. This is supposed to create a little competition in the supply market, but we do not allow commercial entities or businesses to switch suppliers without penalty. So I think we need to take a look at that. I think that's really important for small business survival during these times of high utility costs. I also think we should be looking and discussing stabilization funds so that people don't see their electric bills skyrocket and then dip down and then skyrocket and dip down. People, I hear this all the time. They want to be able to plan. They want to know what their costs are every single month. And so the biggest issue with these big increases was all of a sudden this unexpected rate hike. I also think we need to look at other models. You heard a little bit about municipal utilities. I think anaerobic digesters, you can look to, that's a good one. I really wanted to talk about that next week. If anybody has any questions, let me know.
Candidate Christie, same question. If you'd like me to read it, I'd be happy to.
No, that's fine. And I do agree with Senator Cohen. Everybody wants to know what their bills are. They don't care how the sausage is made. They just want the dinner. And the problem is that these bills have made it very uncomfortable for people. It is a tax. Okay, imposing EV infrastructure onto an electric bill is a tax. Putting in a moratorium bill, and nobody wanted anybody to freeze or be hot during the summer and winter times. And everybody wants clean environment. We want all of these things. And I'm going to be repeating myself over and over again. We have to be able to make it affordable. So how do you make it affordable for businesses? You incentivize them. We don't punish businesses. Incentivize them with tax discounts that will incentivize them to help keep our people in Connecticut. Again, I'm going to repeat what was said before. 90,000 jobs available. This is not a trick question. Why are we not filling those jobs? Why are we having these tax issues? Why are we overtaxed? And what happened to all the money we spent? We need to, if elected, I would look to be on the appropriation committee and look at how we spend our money properly. Because as much as we say that we're going to look into this and look into that, the question is, why haven't we? We're supposed to be proactive, not reactive, not at your expense, because you're not getting that money back on those high costs that you paid in those electric bills. And they will go down because the bill will get paid. What's the next tax you're going to receive? Thank you.
Representative Comey, same question.
Sure. I spent the summer door knocking, several thousand doors, and it was certainly frustrating for me, while trying to figure out what the moving target was on the electricity bill and the electricity issue. I was really, I would say that I echo the comments that were said earlier about the PURA, fixing the whole PURA situation. But I will say that while door knocking and while receiving all the emails from my constituents about their high energy costs, I have had a really great suggestion from one of my constituents, and it brought to me an idea that I've already brought forward to the committee, the folks on the committee, on the energy committee, and have sent an email to hope to be able to discuss it with Commissioner Gillette soon. But this would be a tool that would bring, for consumers, that would bring some transparency for the consumer. It would be a dashboard of sorts on how much and how long, the millstone debt will take to pay off, and it's just been very, very difficult in the past several months to get straight answers from the utility companies, and so we need to hold them accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, and candidate Ingraham.
Thank you. Guess we hit the same door. Same questions. In my house, I'm not the bookkeeper. I'm a little too liberal with my own money, so my wife takes care of that. I work in the basement, a very large corporation. And when the electric bill came, my wife, I could hear, "Oh my gosh." And I heard, and I was like, "Okay, Merrick, will you tell me what's going on?" I go upstairs, look at the, the electric bill went up. I said, "Okay," and then I had to go out and explain, and I knew reasons why it was coming up, so re-explained it again, and explained it at many doors, and most people aren't understanding where it's coming from. But some ideas on reducing what's going on with our cost of electricity and utilities is I have a few ideas here. Limit all future power purchase agreements that no contract can be more than 150% over the wholesale electric market rate. Study moving public policy charges over ratepayer bills and into the budget. Redefine Class 1 renewable energy sources to include forms of hydropower and nuclear power to lower the cost of these energy sources. Separate Department of Energy and Environmental Protection and PURA, the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority.
Thank you. All right, we're going to wrap up. I just wanted to again remind you that Representative Rader had a previous Board of Ed commitment. That is why she is not here for the very final question. So we will start with Representative Parker. What do you want these people and the audience that we have on BCTV to think you stand for? 60 seconds.
Thank you so much for having us tonight. And I look out and I see so many friendly faces. Earlier tonight it included my 18-month-old son, but hopefully he's getting ready for bed soon. I was born and raised in Madison and grew up coming to this library, even though it's in Guilford. And having served in the legislature for the last 4 years has been such an honor to deliver for my community, to think about how we can create a future for my peers, folks that I graduated with that want to build their lives in Madison and build a future for my son. I feel like I have the ability to understand the values of your community and to stand up for those, especially today in politics, is something that I'm so proud to do. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Independent Party again this year, to be on multiple lines on the ballot, to think about bringing folks together, but at the end of the day, to think about progress and how we move our country forward. And even at a local race like this in the state legislature, that's at the front of my mind. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you. Candidate Dean, what do you want our audiences to take away of what you stand for? 60 seconds, please.
Thank you. Well, I would like to say that I have worked with several people on this panel, Christine, John Michael, and Vinny, and they've been wonderful to me. We may not have exactly the same opinions on some political issues. However, they are wonderful people. I would like to emulate Noreen Kokaruda. She meant an awful lot to me. I did a lot of work with her through my nonprofit. Excuse me. And I would like to say that I would listen to my constituents and vote across the aisle if that's what my constituents, the consensus would be. I look forward to working with these people again, and I have a passion, yes, to eradicate fentanyl, illicit fentanyl from our shores, and I would do everything I can to create an atmosphere where juveniles would have the opportunity not to go into drug dealing, because I think that's where it all starts. We have a supply problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Candelara, same question to you. What would you like your constituency to take away about what do you stand for? 60 seconds.
Thank you, and I want to thank the Chamber and thank all of you and the League of Women Voters for putting this on tonight. I think one of the things that I try to approach, my public service is allowing for approachability. People may not agree with the positions I ultimately take, but I try to listen to my constituencies, and I think we really do need more of that in Hartford. Right now, I do believe we talk about our disconnected youth. I think our business climate, we're disconnected. Hartford right now is really working for itself. We aren't feeling the impacts of some of these good decisions because they're just not getting down to us, because we don't pay attention to the other impacts that are coming on, like inflation and affordability. And so I think it's important for every legislator to make sure they are continuing to talk to the community. I'm blessed with having my business in the district along with my family, and so I feel that it does keep me connected to the residents of the 86th district.
Thank you. Candidate Christie, same question. I'm here to be redundant.
If there was one wish, I would say that I'd love to see these party lines torn down. It's gotten toxic, and it really is, and I understand both sides. I really do. There's been a lot of craziness and silliness that went on. But we have to remember, we're talking, regardless of who wins this next election locally, everybody, we're neighbors, we're family, we're friends. I have a whole bunch of Cohen signs up and down my street, and I still talk to my neighbors. I like them. Some of them wave them at me and go, just let you know, like I didn't know they were voting for. I want to see civility. I really do. Listen, I've made it very clear. I will never, ever disrespect Senator Cohen's business or her family. She's a human being, and she's working hard. I will go after her on the issues, but that's just part of the game. But at the end of the day, we need to work together as a society and get over this tribalism that we have. And I hope to be able to do something about that, win, lose, or draw.
Senator Cohen.
Oh, sorry.
Well, first I just want to say thank you, because it has been an honor to serve the 12th Senate District as I have for the past 3 terms, and I hope to be reelected. And I think what I want people to know most about me is that I am committed to working in a bipartisan manner to get results. I too am endorsed on multiple lines, and I think that really speaks to how I am working as a legislator. I think good policy always comes from listening to people, and I think the people really who are affected most by the issues we face really have to be my starting point, and they always are. And so I sort of use that as my compass. I was elected to serve 100,000 constituents. Not all of them are with my party or agree with me, but I really think it's important that we listen to all perspectives and ideas, and we work together as a legislature, regardless of party, to get things done.
Candidate Ingraham.
I didn't get to jump on.
That was my fault.
Thank you.
I messed that up.
Thank you all for being here tonight. I've spent 14 years now on the RTM in Branford legislative body, 30 people. And I've spent that time in a district that is not of my party. The majority is Democrat. But worked on that RTM to find out every time there was a major issue. We're trusted once we're elected to do the little things. But when we have big issues, to reach out and make my vote what my district asked it for. May not have made some happy people, even as the majority leader for a good portion there, decision on a vote that my district didn't want, or did want. Wasn't really my personal being, but I don't think this job is about personal. It's about weighing what your constituents want and bringing that to the office. And I promise to keep doing that. I don't know how to do it any other way. And I do have a large list of people that I send an email out to, and they'll tell me how they feel. They don't do it all on their own.
And Representative
Thank you so much. I just love that everybody up here has sort of the same answer. Before I was a legislator, I was advocating for improving the statewide policies based on the work that I was doing within the community. And I don't forget, as a legislator, even though I've moved on, what it's like to be on the other side of the table. And that is why, I still knock the doors every election season, thousands of them, and I think it's the single best way to understand people's priorities. And whether I'm talking with folks about their health, the kids about their children's health, or the education policies, I am a neighbor, I am a small business owner, I'm a nonprofit leader in the community, and I am really a fierce advocate for the community that elected me. So, my answer, I think, as far as, what my consistency to stand for is that I stand for them. Thank you.
Thank you. I think tonight you've seen that we have 8 people who have been very dedicated to our communities, worked very hard in many, many different ways, and have been spending an awful lot of time both representing or working towards representing the people in this room and our BCTV audience. So please join me in a round of applause for all of them. Give yourselves a round of applause, coming out and taking the time to listen and really, work through what the difference of people and understanding that we have commonality of thought. We also have some key differences. So thank you all for being here. It's hard to believe that early voting will be starting next week, October 21st. Please check your local time for places and times in which to vote. The League of Women Voters of the East Shore will be holding a candidate forum next Tuesday at 7 o'clock at the Guilford Community Center. And there'll be different questions than tonight. I'm almost done. And I want to thank Elise, Carol, and Dan, my co-moderator from the League of Women Voters, and thank you on behalf of the Shoreline Chamber for coming out and being involved in this electoral process. Thank you.
Thank you.